Bitcoin is back, baby. It is bursting through its all-time highs, smashing new records and leaving the haters in the dust. And it's not just Bitcoin. The entire crypto market is on an absolute tear. So why is this happening? Where are we going? But most importantly of all, does this mean that I am eating my words, that I was completely wrong about a video that I made 3 months ago when I said that Bitcoin wasn't the future of money? We're talking all about it in today's video. Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am the Part-Time Economist, and in today's video we have got some super exciting news. If you have been paying any kind of attention to the markets, you know that Bitcoin is breaking through its previous records, that it is hitting all-time highs. For those of you that are invested in cryptocurrency, this is obviously a really exciting time. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I thought was going on here and also explain a video that I made several months ago, because a lot of people at the time were saying, you're wrong, you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're going to change your mind when the price of Bitcoin goes up. So I want to answer those concerns in today's video. But first, we're talking about what really matters, which is not my opinion, but the fact of the matter. As you can see here, obviously Bitcoin is doing really well lately. But it's not just Bitcoin that's doing really well. If we look at the S&P 500, which is widely regarded as a gauge of the American stock market and to some extent the economy as a whole, if we look at the S&P 500, it again is busting through all-time highs. So this gives me a little bit of a hint as to what's going on behind the scenes. If it was just Bitcoin or a single asset that was going up, we might expect that to be some unique feature of the asset in question. But because we also have the S&P 500 going up, I believe there's more of a systemic issue going on. What is that systemic issue? Again, I want to be clear. These are my thoughts. These are my random speculations. This is not financial advice. Please don't make any investing decisions based on what I say here today. My theory is that the market is predicting lower interest rates. So when the Fed lowers interest rates, that means there's more money to go around. People are trying to preserve the value of their wealth, so they start throwing it into assets that retain value. Obviously, Bitcoin with its fixed supply is an asset that is designed to resist inflation, right? However, it's not the only thing. The stock market, because it represents finite ownership in a proportion of a company, no matter how much the Fed prints, you still own the same proportion of Coca-Cola or Pepsi, whatever the case may be. So the idea is that by investing in ownership assets, as the Fed prints more money, you preserve your wealth. So again, that's just my theory, but why do I think this is likely? Well, if we look back at some of the most recent Federal Reserve press releases, we don't hear them saying that they're going to necessarily lower interest rates right away, right? But if we look back over the history, it's something that I personally think is likely. So let's take a look at the federal funds rate. As you can see from this graph, we kind of hit a plateau, right? We are not hiking, and not only that, but we have been at a plateau for a while now. So we're currently in a plateau. Well, what does that mean historically? If we look back at the past history of federal funds rates, so again, this is kind of a gauge for the interest rate in the economy. If we look at that federal funds rate, we can see that virtually every single time that it hits a plateau, that it stops climbing and plateaus, it is almost always followed by a decrease in interest rates, the concept of easy money, so to speak. So again, look at this graph. Virtually any point that you look at, once you hit a plateau, you go down. That's what happens. And I think the market is looking at this and they're saying, we don't know when this is coming. It might be next month, it might be 3 months, it might be whenever, but it's coming. So I think they're getting ahead of it because they know once that money printer turns on, it's off to the races. Regards to Bitcoin, crypto, stock market, gold, silver, real estate, whatever the case may be, right? Again, I'm not making predictions. That's what's going through people's minds. And I think they're trying to get ahead of it. They're looking at the data. They're saying, look, every time we hit this plateau, sooner or later, the money printers are coming back on. And yes, because we have the business cycle, that's always going to happen. However, the key thing here is they're not expecting another increase in the meantime, right? When you look back at the history of federal funds rate, one increase can be followed by another increase, followed by another increase. But once you hit that plateau, it's an indication, I think, to many people, there's no more increases coming before a decrease, right? So that's what I think is going on. We do have the concern of inflation. Some people saying, well, the Fed isn't going to raise interest rates because they're still fighting inflation. If we look at their press releases, they definitely still are concerned about inflation. But if we look at CPI changes, we are at a point where it's still kind of high, but it's not out in the wilderness high, right? So it's not 8% high like it was several years ago. Again, it's not the same as we had back in 2014, 2015, but it's relatively comparable to past historic trends. So going back to the 90s, going back, you can see here around 2002, we are around that area. So we are in an area that the Fed would be comfortable tolerating more CPI, more inflation. So if you put two and two together, the fact that number one, we've hit an interest rate plateau, and after plateaus, we almost always have a cycle of easy money. Combine that with the fact that inflation, although it still exists, it's not so obscene level of inflation that would prevent the Fed from turning back on the money printers. So again, that's just my theory of the macroeconomic context. I think people are looking at this. They're saying, hey, at some point soon, maybe the money printers are coming back on. Let's get ahead of that. Again, I'm not telling you that's a good idea. I'm not telling you that's what I'm doing. I'm just saying I think that's what we're seeing going on here in the markets. Now, getting back to the second point. Was I wrong when I made my video saying that Bitcoin isn't the ideal form of money and that I'm proven wrong because now the price is going up? I want to clarify a couple things. I don't know if I mentioned it in that video. I'm sure I did. I own Bitcoin. I own cryptocurrency, right? This is something I invest in. When the price goes up, it makes me happy. It puts a smile on my face. So, I think it's important to have a sense of nuance. And the point that I was trying to make in that video was that Bitcoin, and I still believe this, is not necessarily an ideal form of money, right? And people didn't seem to understand that I could like Bitcoin, that I could own it as an investment, while simultaneously saying that there were aspects that I didn't think it was suited for. And I think maybe that's a symptom of internet culture, maybe, where you're either for us or you're against us, right? And I think it's important to have a critical mind. Not every single tool is going to be a solution to every problem, right? Not every handyman job around the house needs a hammer. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. That doesn't mean that using a screwdriver to change the locks on your doors means that the hammer is a bad tool. So I just wanted to clarify that and then also get back to my point. So now has my mind changed that the price of Bitcoin has went up? Am I a hypocrite? No. As I said, Bitcoin, for me, it's something that I invest in. It's not something I consider to replace the entire monetary system. The transaction fees for Bitcoin are still very high, and the very volatility of the price of Bitcoin, in my opinion, makes it ill-suited to a monetary asset for day-to-day transactions. The very people that are saying, oh, when the price of Bitcoin goes up, you're going to change your mind, is not the case. In reality, it actually proves my point even further. People always get on to me saying, you're not citing your source. So I have a publication here from the Federal Reserve. You don't get more authoritative than that. It clearly says that stability is a hallmark, is an important feature of money. So if you're saying Bitcoin went up 500% this year, that's why it's a great money. No, that's why it is potentially a great investment. not necessarily a great form of money. People think that having a deflationary money is good, right? However, there are problems with that from a business planning perspective. It's important to have nuance. It's important to understand the difference between money and investment, all of these different things. So even though the price of Bitcoin has went up, obviously, I'm excited if you can't tell in this video. I like making money. I want all of you to make money, right? Even though that has happened, I still maintain my original position that Bitcoin as a form of money, as something for day-to-day transactions, my opinion, isn't what we're going for. That's not to say it's not important. That's not to say it's not good. That's not to discount the gains that people have been making off it. It's simply to say that I don't think it fits the narrow definition of what is an optimal form of money for the very reason of some of its strengths, which is that price appreciation. So obviously, these are, again, just my opinions, speculations. Please do not make any kind of investments based on what I said here today. I do appreciate you watching. I hope you found the video useful, and I will see you next time.